It towered over 38 feet high. It weighed 1,490 US tons, or about the same as 198 male African elephants. Its barrel was 106 feet and 8 inches in length, and it fired 12-foot-long shells. Schwerer Gustav, or Heavy Gustav, the largest artillery gun ever built, an immense weapon of war designed with one major purpose: to knock out France's Maginot Line. Haunted by how their country was occupied during World War I, and alarmed by how Germany seemed to be rearming in violation of the Treaty of Versailles, in 1929 the French began building the Maginot Line, a complex defensive network. Over the next 9 years, France built some 900 miles of fortifications, with 280 miles of defenses specifically on the border with Germany. The Maginot Line included bunkers, above and underground fortresses, as well as concrete gun emplacements, observation posts, depots, and rail lines. Realizing that the Maginot Line would make it tough to invade France, in 1934 Germany set out to make an artillery gun that could fire from beyond the range of the French artillery. Furthermore, to take out larger fortifications, the gun's shells had to be able to penetrate 23 feet of reinforced concrete, or 3.28 feet of steel armor plate. However, it took German weapons manufacturer Krupp AG far longer to design, prototype, and construct such an immense artillery gun than originally planned. Unfortunately, Schwerer Gustav wasn't ready when Germany attacked France in the spring of 1940. However, in the end, Germany successfully invaded France by going around the Maginot Line and sending troops into France through Belgium and the Netherlands. But Gustav's wrath would still be felt by the Allies. It wasn't until 1942 that Gustav was ready for duty. By this time, Germany was invading the Soviet Union. Gustav was sent to Sevastopol, a well-fortified port in Crimea. Due to the size of the gun, it took 25 rail cars to ship it. Once Gustav arrived in the region, over 3,000 German soldiers spent over 3 weeks laying a special railway spur line used for assembling the gun and positioning it to strike targets. They also dug a 26-foot tunnel for sheltering the weapon, as it would be vulnerable to an aerial attack. Additionally, 2 anti-aircraft battalions set up positions surrounding Gustav to help protect it. It took a 500-man crew of engineers, scientists, and workmen some 54 hours to set the gun up and prep it for firing. Meanwhile, on June 2, 1942, the Germans launched a new operation on Sevastopol, simultaneously attacking and encircling the Soviet forces by land, sea, and air. Finally, on the third day after the battle had already begun, Gustav was ready for use. It had 2 shelling options. It could fire a high explosive shell weighing around 10,000 pounds with muzzle velocity of nearly 2,700 feet per second over a range of about 30 miles. These shells contained around 1,543 pounds of explosives. On impact, they could create a crater 30 feet wide and 30 feet deep. Also, Gustav could launch a 15,400-pound concrete-piercing shell at a muzzle velocity of around 2,362 feet per second, up to 23 miles away. Packed with about 550 pounds of explosives and an aluminum alloy ballistic nose cone, it could penetrate 23 feet of reinforced concrete at maximum elevation. So did Gustav live up to the hype? Kind of. During its first day of battle, Gustav fired and took out some coastal artillery. It had also fired 6 shells at Fort Stalin, a concrete fortified bunker, but failed to neutralize it. The next day, Gustav fired 7 shells at Fort Molotov with mixed results. But then Gustav utterly decimated White Cliff. Also known as Ammunition Mountain, White Cliff was an undersea ammunition magazine nearly 100 feet down at the bottom of Severnaya Bay. It also was encased in nearly 33 feet of protective concrete. Gustav penetrated and destroyed the arsenal, blowing it apart with 9 shots. Also, some of the boats in the bay sank. Over the next several days, Gustav continued to provide heavy-duty artillery support to help decimate other important targets around Sevastopol. At times, it was rough going. It took a 300-man crew about 45 minutes to load each shot. On the best days, Gustav was able to fire 14 shots. Notably, the railway gun bombarded and destroyed Fort Siberia with 5 shots. Also, Gustav fired on the Maxim Gorky fortresses. With just 5 shells, Maxim Gorky 1 was left in smoldering ruins and Maxim Gorky 2 was damaged. By the time Sevastopol surrendered to the Germans on July 4th, Gustav had 13 days of operational use and had worn out its original barrel. It had been fired nearly 50 times in battle and another 250 or so times during quality control checks during manufacturing. The gun was fitted with a spare barrel and the original barrel was returned to the factory. Schwerer Gustav was a technical marvel, but also a boondoggle. Although its firepower was impressive, the technical and logistical limitations of the gun restricted its use. It was incredibly labor-intensive to build. It required more than 1,000 tons of steel, thousands of man-hours, and an estimated 7 million Reichmarks. All this for just 48 shots in a war where resources were limited in supply. Gustav was temporarily dismantled and then later shipped to the northern region of the Eastern Front, where it was rebuilt in anticipation of an attack on Leningrad. The Russians pushed the Germans back and the attack never happened. The gun, pending further service, was warehoused near Leningrad in the winter of 1942–43. It's not clear where Gustav was shipped after that. However, there are unconfirmed reports of it being used in Warsaw. Ruins of the artillery gun were found in April 1945. The Germans had stripped Gustav for parts and used demolition charges to destroy what they couldn't take with them so it wouldn't fall into the hands of the advancing US troops. German weapons manufacturer Krupp AG was actually in the process of making an even larger, longer-range artillery gun to be called Longer Gustav, Gustav Long. The weapon was found unfinished in a workshop when the American forces took the town the company was in. For even more insane weapons, go watch weapons even the military made illegal, or check out this one instead.